In this video, we're going to take a look at the Execute window within MagicQ. The Execute window is it's a window that's designed to allow the user a great amount of customization of the look and feel of MagicQ. It's to set it up in a way that makes sense to you, the user, the programmer, the operator. And there's lots of variabilities that we can throw into here. It's a very malleable view or window, and there's a lot of stuff we can do with it. You can add groups, palettes, macros, queues, queue stacks, all kinds of things to the Execute window. This is an introduction video, so we're not going to get too deep into it, but we're going to highlight most of the basic functions of the Execute window, and then we'll have other videos in the future that will kind of delve deeper into more of the in-depth features of the Execute window itself. In order to get into the Execute window, there's a hard button on your consoles, or this button here on your software, the exec button. If you tap on it, it'll bring you into an Execute window starting at page 1. And if you haven't set it up, it's going to give you this message first: no grid size defined. That's because you, the user, the operator, can set that grid size to be whatever you want. In order to do so, there's a soft button up here, set grid size. If I tap on it, it gives me a numeric keypad, and it says some information up here: enter grid size width by height. So if I give it a width of 8 buttons wide by 4 buttons high, I get 8 buttons across and 4 buttons high. If I don't like that grid for whatever reason, I can make it 3 by 9. So now I have 3 buttons across and 9 buttons high. So I can set this to be whatever I want. I can make it as simple as 1 by 2 or 2 by 1. Also, if I have very simple things that I just need done. I made one here on page 2. On encoder A, this encoder wheel up here, or if you tap in the box here, you can change pages. So here I have set up, we have a venue here. It could be a church, it could be a nightclub, it could be a venue or a school auditorium. Say you have some DMX lights up in the air here that are your house lights. You could have volunteers or students come in and simply tap front and back, and that turns on. And you can group these however you want them to be. I just happen to I have 20 lights in the air, so I did 10 in the back and 10 in front. But you could do this, and you could break these groups up to however you wanted them to be if it made more sense for your auditorium or your space. And as long as I have them on, I can change pages. Again, I'm on page 2 here. If I go to page 1 again, these are going to stay on. They're going to stay on as long as I leave those buttons on. If I go back to page 2 and turn them off, then they're going to turn off. I've created another one on page 3 here that has a lot more stuff going on, and we can get into what these functions, how you save items to the Execute page, and once you've saved items there, how can you manipulate the function of the buttons and what they do for you. So if I get rid of this one, for example, this green one, I'm going to remove it, and now I have nothing there. Okay, so if I go to layout 1, if I bring my static fixtures, my LED RGB AWs that I have here, and I'm going to bring them to full, so now I can see them. If I open up my color space, I have to choose those lights, and now I can put them in a color, and then just simply record, tap on an empty tile right here, and that's it. I've created myself that green look. Now I do have to name it, so I'll hit set, type in green, and I have my name there. Now, the only difference from all the other ones that are up here are all these other ones have this little SO here in the corner. And what does that mean? Well, if I click on this, they turn yellow. If I click on red, you see it knocks out that yellow one, and it does what I asked it to do. It turns them red. If I turn on this green one, however, A, you'll see it snapped into place, and B, you'll see that it also left this red one on. So this is where the item type is important. There are 4 types of buttons that we can create in the Execute page. By default, it's going to create a toggle button. So that's what this is. It's just toggling on and off. If I click through, I can see the choices that I get. If I click once, I get a fader, denoted by the F in the corner there. I get a button FL, which is a flash button, also denoted by the FL in the corner. And then I get a button SO, which is solo. And that's what all the rest of these are. The definition of a solo button allows you to knock out any other button that is in the same row, the same horizontal row, that is also labeled as solo, will knock out that button. So now when I go from colors to colors, it's going to knock out the current color that I'm in. Right now, this statics button is a default button. So it is set to just a button type. So that allows me to toggle the fixtures on and off. I have a 1 second fade up time on that, and a 0, it's a snapping 0 second fade to snap out. But if I want to have more fine control over the intensity of these, then I also have the ability, as we looked over here, to make this into a fader. So if I have my yellow box, my yellow cursor on that, I can use my arrow keys, either on my console or on my computer, to move around. Once I have my yellow box on that item, I can say I want that item to be a fader, and now it's a fader. Now I understand you don't see it as a fader. It doesn't look like a fader right now, and that's because right now we're in design mode. Everything that we're going to do right now is designing how we want this to look and how we want it to function. Once we're done designing it, I would run my show in this mode, in View Execute. Then I can see my buttons. It negates all of the other empty squares that we had. It gets rid of those, and it only leaves things that I've already programmed into my Execute page. In View Max, I'll talk about in a minute or so. So if I go back here, well, now here, you can see that I have control of this fader. I have control of intensity. I also have control of my movers, my mavericks intensities as well. So back in View Design, if you notice, these are all solos. I'm going to turn this off for now. And these are not. So now, every single time I click on one, it's just going to add it to the line. So after a while, when I have all of these lit up, I don't know which one that I've chosen. I might have picked something down here and something over here, and now I don't know which is the one that's active. So that's why it's always good to have a solo button. You can do multiple buttons at a time by highlighting them all, changing the item type, and now these are all solos. So now, these will all knock out the one next to it. Up here, if you noticed, I had a 1 second fade time on all of these. Except the new one that I added, this green one, is a 0 second time because it's a new cue that I just added. If you know MagicQ, you know that if you can double tap on the S button, it brings you into the cue stack for that playback or that fader. So similarly, if I have my cursor, my yellow box, on any item, I can come up here to the soft button, View Item, and if I click on it, that brings me into the same look, same familiar look as I was seeing down here, and I have a fade time right here. So I can double click on that. I can put in 1 second. I also like to go to View Options and give it a release time of 1 second. So now, as I change from color to color, it'll give me a nice smooth fade. If I wanted to, I could put another row of colors down here, the same colors, and I could just give them a 0 time, and then that way I could snap between colors if I chose to. I can put more things than just colors in the Execute window. There's lots and lots of different things I can put in here. Anything that you can put on a playback, you can pretty much put up here in the Execute window. So I have some positions. If I bring my intensity down a little bit, maybe. I can change colors, change position. On this position 2, I added some gobos into the actual cue itself, so these will change the gobos as well. I can add a zoom sign. If you'll notice in View Design, these are solos, because I want the positions to knock out the position next to it, but these are not, because I want to be able to add effects and other type things on top of the positions and the colors that I have going on. So I can add this zoom sign on top of it. I can still change my colors, and I can add things like movement, symmetrical circle, and I can still change my position as well. And then of course I can always release my circle, release my zoom effect. I also have, if I go back to view execute, a fader that I created here for a sine wave, so I can still put intensity effects on top of what's going on. And then this is a good example of a flash button. I made a strobe button, but this is a flash, so it's only gonna work as long as I'm holding it down. As soon as I release it, it's gonna stop. So great for strobing, for atomics, for things like that, things that are temporary or you only want momentarily. You have a preload option here. So if this is the look I have on stage, I can click preload. I can change it to yellow. I can change this to red and change it to position 3. But you notice that nothing has happened yet until I hit preload go. Once I hit that, it'll go into the position and colors that I've just asked it for. I'll say the zoom sign as well. And there we go. I can take down my intensity, and it's going to reassert the Maverick intensity that I had over here if I bring down my dim sign effect that I had running. And of course, if I turn everything off, it'll just go back to its default state, which would be open white. There are other functions that I can use as well. If I go back to view design, if I have my cursor on an empty box, you'll see up here it says assign special. If I use assign special, there's lots of little pre-made functions that I can just click on, and it will automatically put that in this box. Some examples of those are like this page up, exec page up, and exec page down. That way, if you add these to every exec page, you don't have to use this over here. I can just go up to this page. Here I have an example of a haze and fan, so I'll often use these. I can set the haze level and the fan level of a hazer, and then I can always go back and continue my show. If I needed to, I can always go back up to my page, I can change something, and then I can always go on and move on. This is another page that has nothing in it, but it's just an example. And if I want to change the appearance of these buttons while I'm in view execute mode, then I can come over here to my B encoder where it says appearance, and I can change that. Right now it's in images, so what I'm going to see is these kind of gray squares, all have their names, I've named everything, and these type of faders. If I go back to view design and I change this to colored, and then go back, now you can see I have blue boxes and a couple of colored boxes. Well, how did I get these red and yellow? To match the colors that are actually in there, because this is red and this is yellow. If I'm in view design and I put my cursor on any box, because I'm in colored appearance here, if I come here to the color of button type, I can change the color by clicking on it, red, green, and that's this button here. So now if I look at it, that's green. If I go to the one next to it, teal, red, green, blue, cyan. Cyan would be teal. And there's teal. And so on and so forth. So I can do that for most every button that's there. There's not every single color in the rainbow there, but all of the major colors are there. I can also lastly just do boxes like this. Most people I see tend to like either the images or colors. Colors is a very good visual way for you to be able to look quickly at your execute page and kind of see how things are lined up or see how you laid things out. I hope this tutorial gave everybody a good overview of how to use the execute page and how configurable and user-friendly it can be. In future, we will have more videos regarding more in-depth functions of the execute page and more of what it can do. It's a very useful page. And I always like seeing how other people use their execute pages because we all use them so differently, it's always nice to see, get some ideas from other people and stuff. So happy programming, and thanks for listening.